The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Good morning and welcome to the Tea Party Power Hour. This is Mark Galar, your host. We have a very special guest today, Mr. Doug Vogt. Anyone who's been following the eligibility issues certainly has heard his name many times before. He is an expert who has gone over the Certificate of Live Birth with a fine-tooth comb, and he's going to share some of his insight with us today. Doug, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. I don't know why we waited so long to have you here. It's long past due, but we finally got you, so we want to take advantage of it. Now, tell us a little bit about when you first became interested in the eligibility issue. What was it that grabbed your attention and got you interested in this?
It's real simple. I have a friend, Barbara, in New York, who's a videographer. And the day of the news conference on the 27th of April 2011, she called me up and say, hey, graphic artists are finding layers in the PDF they put up on the White House website. It was put up sometime after 12 or 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So I looked at it, and my experience, so people understand, is I owned a typesetting company for about 11 years, I think, and then I got into graphics, and I own a company that sells document imaging scanners and of all types. So I know how the scanners work, and I know how Adobe works, because many of them actually come with the scanners, and what you could have and what you don't have. and that's basically what my experience, so it's Paul's Irie, who you interviewed a couple of weeks ago, he owned a typesetting company, a very big one in New York City and New Jersey. He was a typographer for 50 years. So between the two of us, we have a total of, I think, 82 years collective experience in the graphics and scanner business and typesetting business. So we were quite unique. And what I want to go over was, one, defining what the crime was.
Doug, one quick question.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that you got involved right at the time that I did. It wasn't until the actual long form, if you will, the PDF purported to be the long form, was released, that I became really interested in this, because before that it was all speculation. Does he have one? Does he not have one? But then when you take a look at the PDF and all the problems that go along with it, it was hard not to become curious about this. So I have to ask, prior to the PDF being released, Doug, what was your opinion about the entire birther movement, as it's called?
There was questions regarding the short form.
Correct.
And I think I'd like to explain something right now, which is really important.
Okay.
I've written other books also, science books and philosophy of science books. If you're going to figure out a great secret, you have to find the starting point that some action, either natural or done by a group of people, caused another group of people to react to it. Once you find that point in time, then you're able to actually unravel the mystery, because you know then what the parties are doing. In this case, the short form of Obama's was released under very unusual circumstances. He couldn't run for office in Hawaii because the head of the Democratic Party there refused to certify him. Pelosi, the national chairman, had to wind up doing it. But they made a mistake when they created the short form, and this is really critical. They picked the wrong date of acceptance by the registrar. They chose August 8th rather than August 11th or 12th. And the reason I say this, there were articles saying, well, I'll add this. That was released about June 12th, 2008.
Okay.
About 2 weeks later, somebody in the Department of Health must have realized the mistake, and somebody magically appear a short form birth certificate of a deceased woman who was born in 1930, and her birth certificate was 199 days off. In other words, they altered the database and produced this short form and put it up I spoke to the daughter of the deceased woman. I won't mention her name. And I've been corresponding with her, and she's the one who put it up originally on her genealogy page. And magically it was used to really, first on the surface, to show that you could see the Department of Health seal on it, because you couldn't see it on Obama's at first. But really the reason they released it is because it was to throw researchers off on the certificate number. Now, this is the key part. After that, they produced over 3 other forgeries with defective numbers. Now, I'm not going to say exactly how many certificates I know of, because I don't want them to know how many I do know of. But they created or altered existing birth certificates and changed numbers on them. Now, this is why it's key. There were some articles that were published in some of the birther magazines, news groups, that said that the certificate numbers were alphabetized every month in the Department of Health. It's a total lie. One, there are federal regulations, as well as I went to the task of reading the state laws and state administrative code for all 50 states and the District of Columbia. And it will be in the book as one of the appendices. I may now know more about the birth certificate laws than maybe anybody else, but there is no question that of the 50 states plus one, 14 mention the federal statutes specifically, that their laws correspond with theirs. The federals, one of the requirements of the security features of the birth certificate is a sequential number, and they define what the sequential number is in 16 of the states, and it's very simple. They define what filing is, what file and registration is, and the process is this. They mail either a county or the hospital, depending on the state, whether they have one registration location or multiples, will mail it to the state, eventually it gets to the state registrar. State registrar checks everything off on the birth certificate, that everybody signed it in black ink, and then he signs it, dates it, and numbers it. And that is the process of acceptance and filing. And there is no other definition. And 16 of the states repeat that process exactly. All other things, so in other words, if you knew the average number of births in a state, if you knew the date of registrar, the date that the registrar accepted it, you could get within a few days of what the number should be. And if you knew the certificate number but not the date of acceptance, you can get within a few days of when the registrar would have accepted it. We had actually bought 15-plus legitimate birth certificates from people in Hawaii, ranging from 1958 all the way to the 60s and some of the 70s. But we have a lot in 60, 61, and 62. And I'm within 0 days, and I was right dead on, to 4 or 5 days. One day was 9 days off, but that was Christmas time. The doctor signed it on the 29th, and the registrar stamped it on the 30th. So that's how good I got with this stuff. So all these stories about they took it in at the Hawaii. By the way, Honolulu is the county and also the island, and the county is also the city, but it's the entire island of Oahu. So there's only the state registrar is the local registrar, and that's why both date stamps for the local and the state one are exactly the same, because of the same office. So if that was true, then how come we have people, some of the people, last name starts with an A or a B or a C, and they are towards the end of the month or middle of the month? If they had alphabetized, imagine they had 1,450 or so birth certificates per month in Hawaii in 61. They had an average about 49 or 48 point something births per day in Hawaii. Imagine a bunch of bureaucrats sitting there and alphabetizing this stuff.
Well, for me, it's really easy. For me, it's really easy. I look at Gretchen and Susan Nordyke. Susan Nordyke was born first, and she has the lower number. If they had alphabetized them, Gretchen would have the lower number. And I've yet to have anyone explain that away. So.
Well, it would be by the last name anyway. That's how this stuff is viewed. But it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Once you know what the law is, it's irrelevant. I mean, of the 51 states and District of Columbia, 49 of them had it in their law that defining what file and registration is, and it's all the same. It's all the same nationwide. That basically it's a hang on, wait.
Do you need to catch that?
No, I just disconnect it. That's all.
Okay.
It's all the same thing. It's a federal statute, and it's a state statute in almost all the states. There's only 2 states I didn't see it mentioned specifically, and that was Connecticut and one other. But it's all pointless. It's all, the OBOTs are basically paid liars by the administration to cover it up. It gave it up when they had the news conference in April of 2011. They basically said, within a couple of weeks, they had a news conference that they hired somebody to handle the internet and all the the traffic and the correspondence and answer and get the administration's word out. Those are the OBOTs. They're paid. What happens with these guys is their egos are boundless, and they only believe and listen to their own propaganda, and they don't think things out. What I wanted to explain now I'm going to go through the list.
Okay.
I have about 25 items, but I want to define 2 things that are really important. Well, I've explained this to some of the OBOTs, which scared them a lot. And some of them actually have semi-disappeared, or they basically leave me alone not to enrage me too badly. But this is it. I want you to define what the law is and with the crime that really has been committed here, because they didn't know it either. They were just really stupid. In the federal statutes, it's called Title 18, Crimes and Criminal Procedures. That's where it is. They define what principles are. It's in Chapter 1, Section 2, and this is it. It's 2 small sentences. Whoever commits an offense against the United States or aids, abets, counsels, commands, induces, or procures its commission is punishable as a principle. Part 2, whoever willingly causes an act to be done, which is directly performed by him or another, would be an offense against the United States is punishable as a principle. Keep that in mind. So everybody from the forger to the people who paid him or her, the people who presented it to the public at the news conference, the guy who is benefited by it, namely the guy in the top, and all those others at the Department of Health who are involved would be principals. Next, accessories after the fact. Statute. This is Section 3, Federal Code. Whoever, knowing that an offense against the United States has been committed, receives, relieves, comforts, or assists the offender in order to hinder or prevent its apprehension, trial, or punishment is an accessory after the fact. They get either half the offense of the principal, and if it's life in prison or the death sentence, they get 15 years in prison. Now, the other one, which is really a humdinger, is called misprision of treason. And that sums it all up. That's what made them all very scared. They didn't realize the crime they really did. And it's under Chapter 228 in Title 18, Section 3592. I've almost memorized this thing.
Sounds like it.
Mitigating, aggravating factors to be considered in determining whether a sentence of death is justified. In the hit parade in Section Section B, aggravating factors of espionage and treason. And it goes in, and this is the part. There's 3 things that get you the death sentence.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.